So, check this out.
Yeah.
A guy wakes up. Massive hangover.
So?
Massive hangover. He's about to throw up and shit. He notices that he's naked, like no jeans, no undies. He reaches for his dick, and he finds that he has 4 balls.
Okay.
So, he immediately grabs his phone and dials his old man. Dad, I woke up the morning after, and suddenly I have 4 balls. His dad goes, "Get out of there, son, you're being fucked."
You're done.
When I heard that Soleil Studios was going to be making a game that utilized their pedigree in gaming from their past works such as Dead or Alive, Ninja Gaiden, and Devil's Third, I was immediately on board with what they were making. From the trailers and sneak peeks that I got to see of Wanted Dead, I was immediately excited and couldn't wait to get my hands on it. You see, gaming in the modern era is very formulaic, with little to no innovations, with developers either sticking to a winning formula or remaking a game from the decades past. Experimentation is not a common thing in today's gaming landscape, save for the indie devs and the few times the AAA companies allow their devs to make something original. Hi-Fi Rush, I'm looking at you. So for me, I was all in on something new that would disrupt the genre again. And here we are with Wanted Dead from Soleil Studios. Does it live up to the pedigree of the studio's previous works and blaze a new trail? Or does it stumble out the gate and land with only the hardcore of gamers that missed the 2000s era of gaming? Let's find out. Wanted Dead is set in a cyberpunk dystopian 2022 in the shoes of Hannah Stone, who is a former war criminal turned police officer and head of Hong Kong's zombie squad, comprised of ex-cons serving life sentences. Hannah and the zombie squad are tasked with stopping any threats deemed too dangerous for normal police work and are therefore given freedom to eliminate whatever threat appears. Hannah and company will have to come to terms with their new roles as well as the dangerous bullet-laden future that awaits and ultimately wants them dead. The gameplay of Wanted Dead is essentially a third-person action hack-and-slash with cover-based third-person shooter mechanics mixed in. You'll run into mostly empty arenas and fight wave after wave of enemy before you can proceed further, which is a gameplay formula that was at its peak in the late 2000s. The best way to describe this game is Devil's Third 2, or Devil's Third Remake, which is accurate when you consider that the team at Soleil also made Devil's Third and some of the Ninja Gaiden games. After some trial and error, I got my bearings with the gameplay and combat loop that you find yourself in. Hannah has access to a katana, pistol, and with various semi-automatic rifles and shotguns. With a katana, Hannah is able to do a multitude of sword combos that she's able to intermix with her pistol, which can help guard break enemies who end up blocking too much. You can also just fire off rounds of the pistol by pressing the Y button of the controller, which will automatically aim at the closest enemy near Hannah. The third-person shooter part of the game plays similar to Gears of War, with you being able to run up to objects in the environment and get into cover. From there you can do blind fire as well as ADS or aim down sights and shoot from an over-the-shoulder perspective, which you would think would be good for dealing with enemies. Until you realize that the gunplay for the most part is entirely ineffective for the majority of enemies that are nothing more than bullet sponges. You will constantly run out of ammo and will need to rely on the katana to dish out the pain, although that comes with its own disadvantages. The prime culprit is the fact that once Hannah is in a sword swing animation, you're fully committed to seeing that animation play out, and if you want to dodge or parry, then you're SOL and will be taking damage. Barring the parry mechanic from Ninja Gaiden and Devil's Third, Hannah is able to parry an incoming attack right before it lands by pressing block, which will open up the enemy to being punished. If you see the enemy glimmer red, then immediately press Y to fire your pistol, which will parry the unblockable attack and leave the enemy open for either a meaty combo, or if they get into a stunned state and are flashing white, then you can press Y and B together to grab the enemy and do one of many numerous brutal executions. You need to find a good flow between sword and gun combat, as I find it is best to soften up the enemies with a few pistol shots followed by some sword swings. And if you get the opportunity ability to parry an incoming attack or counter an unblockable heavy attack, then do it, as it will allow you to mow down the increasingly difficult enemies. The other guns I find to not be worth the time, as even if you line up a headshot or a critical body shot, enemies will just soak up bullets. That's not to say don't ever use the other guns, as there are moments where you'll be pinned down by gunfire, and trying to rush up on the enemy Rambo style will quickly get you killed, so use the cover mechanic and try to shoot the explosive barrels in the environment and take out some enemies with the gun as best you can. There is a gauge that builds up as you hit enemies that, once filled, will allow you to activate bullet time, which will slow down time and have Hannah fire off a bunch of shots that will put most enemies in a stun state and allow you to do a chain of instant kills if enough enemies are in proximity, and when used on bosses and sub-bosses, Hannah will inflict tons of damage on them. You can carry up to 2 rifles, shotguns, or grenade launchers and can freely swap between them. Some weapons can give you the option to switch the firing rate at the press of a button. You can also use grenades, which come in a variety of flavors, which really come in handy when you're fully surrounded by enemies. There's also a skill tree system, which allows you to gain new abilities, such as being able to do follow-up attacks after a parry, do a charged up katana swing, extend your basic combos, and even gain additional stat buffs and bonuses. Every defeated enemy gives you experience points that you can use to gain new skills that will help you in battle. At every checkpoint you come across, the gunsmith will send their drone, of which will allow you to customize your guns from the stock, barrel, ammo clip, and scope, and even the camo skin. Each change that you make will change the state of your rifle and pistol, such as increased and decreased accuracy, recoil, damage, and stopping power, ammo, and more. It's best to evenly try to balance out your rifle, while the pistol, I find it to be the best to focus on its damaging potential and stopping power. Lastly, when not in missions, you'll find yourself at the police station, with you able to roam and talk to various officers, as well as play various minigames in the lounge area. Graphically, Wanted Dead is rough looking. It is very much a game that has the visuals from the Xbox 360 and PS3 era that rarely ever looks like a modern game in 2022-2023 in the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S era. It makes this a hard one to say that this is a modern game and not just some indie low budget title, especially when you consider that this is a full price game. Hannah and her squad all animate almost robotically and have the most stilted of facial features I've seen in years. The amount of detail in the character models and the lip syncing is all indie-rific in early 2000s, and that's all I have to say about it. Environments aren't anything to write home about either, and are mainly open areas with set pieces to take cover behind. Now, the one area where the game shines is in its anime cutscenes that occasionally play out. I'm not sure which anime studio animated these, but boy do they look good. The audio is a bit of a mixed bag, as it doesn't have the best audio mixing and balancing, with the voice dialogue randomly going up and down without rhyme or reason, and many times will be drowned out with the ambient background noise. I also found that the game doesn't use music, which in some cutscenes, because of this and the awkward pauses and some dialogue, it makes it very out of place, and it makes some scenes feel like you're waiting for something to happen with the audio cue, when in reality all that's happening is a dead pause with no music for the moments that matter. The voice acting is okay. I mean, it's not terrible by any means necessary, but it's not great either, and a lot of the lines come across flatly read, and the moments that are meant to be important end up coming off comical or flat. If you play Devil's Third, then you already know to expect not great voice acting and delivery from this developer. Now, as far as the performance goes, on the Steam Deck, it's fairly solid for the most part, with my needing to turn the graphical settings down from the custom to medium and or low settings and turning FSR on. I was able to get a mostly stable 60 FPS that fluctuates down to 50 FPS while having a battery life that lasts about 2 hours. On my desktop, I ran the game at max settings and got 120 frames per second, while on my gaming laptop, I was able to get it to run at 1440p at 60 frames per second. The game also supports ultrawide monitors, as I was able to play this on both my 49-inch ultrawide and my 34-inch ultrawide. I did run into some bugs here and there, such as graphical glitches, where objects get stuck in the player, character, and enemies, as well as there being random moments of input latency and severe slowdown. Now, I did play this on the Steam Deck, as well as on my gaming laptop that has an RTX 3060 and gaming desktop that has an RTX 3080 Ti, and I ran into these issues across the board on all three. There are even times when I would have a slither of health and the game would just play the death animation out of nowhere and just strip me of all control of Hannah before I had even been touched by the enemy. I also found that the allies that you have in battle with you barely do anything and are entirely useless. They do next to nothing other than just spraying bullets that hit nothing. And just wonder, where is this ammo clip that's like infinite coming from? Do they have the infinite bandana from Metal Gear Solid? I don't know, like all the enemies can hit you from anywhere, even behind cover. So let's just say the AI in this game as a whole is terrible. So with all that jank and undercooked and half-baked ideas, is Wanted Dead worth buying? Yes and no. I say no because the game is, as it should not be full price in any way, shape, or form, with how much jank that's in it. However, I say yes because I find the jank to be appealing, as I'm a fan of the developers of this game and miss that genre and that era that currently, with action games as they are now, they just generate God of War 2018 clones. It's the same behind the back, over the shoulder, angle with right and left triggers being used for attacks. Like, we don't use face buttons in a lot of games anymore. So this game was willing to take some risk and reutilize ideas that the team had from Devil's Third and Ninja Gaiden and make a game that I honestly had a lot of fun with. Is it for everyone? No, but it's a game that will have me coming back to it over and over. If you're looking for a game with a game design from a bygone era, or if you want to experience what action games used to be like back when developers were allowed to throw in everything and the kitchen sink and make you feel like John Woo meets John Wick, then Wanted Dead is worth diving into. For all the others who may not care about any of that, I recommend waiting on this game to go on a sale, or a deep sale. I greatly appreciate Soleil and the work they've done here and the risks that they took and continue to take in games they develop. And while, this game has a lot of jank and may not be worth that full price, it's a game that I think if you like action hack and slash games, it's one that you can find a lot of fun in, especially when it comes to the unique gameplay loop that it has.
These were the days.
There's more male nudity in your stories than in a Joaquin Phoenix flick.
What can I say? I'm a sensual guy.